I present to you either the best or worst vehicle ever made. Now, to me, this is the best vehicle, I think, one of the best ones that were ever made. Of course, they're not without their problems. This is a 1999 Chevy Blazer. You're probably wondering, Dash, why are you doing a video on a 99 Chevy Blazer? Well, the only reason to me is because I grew up in one of these things. When I was a kid, I grew up with my grandfather, and he had multiple Chevy Blazers. He traveled across the country, mostly the Midwest, as an iron worker, and in the middle of the winter, throughout the summers, he always had a Chevy Blazer. And when I was a little kid, I practically grew up in the back of one of these. I would sleep back there. I have so many memories of both of my grandfathers sitting up front, and I'm just kind of laying in the back or sitting in the back and, you know, listening to them talk. So there's a lot of sentimental value to these vehicles. I also like the styling of them. I liked how simple the vehicles were back in the 90s and early 2000s. These are incredibly reliable if you fix the common issues that that go wrong with them. So what I did is I bought this truck for $1,000. It said mechanic special. So I called the guy and I said I'd like to come look at it, and if I like it, then I'll buy it from you. So turns out all it needed was a starter. And the way it looks now is exactly how it came. It came with the nice wheels and tires, all the accessories like the little window guards and the plug deflector and all that. That was already on it. The mud flaps. So it already came with some of the stuff that kind of make these trucks look nice. I ended up putting more money into this than I wanted to, but it runs really good now. And let's talk a little bit about these Chevy Blazers. All right, so the first thing that I had to do when I bought this was it came with its original engine, and after I fixed the starter, I just put a new starter in, and it fired right up. It ran good. And what I noticed though, it actually drove really good, no knocking, nothing. And I thought I just scored a really good deal where I didn't really have to fix anything. And then I noticed that the coolant was low. So I was just test driving it, and this is where I went wrong. This is where I made a grave mistake that caused so many more problems later on. Is that I ended up filling it back up with coolant because I thought, maybe that's a radiator leak or whatever. I shouldn't have done that. What happened was I filled it with coolant, I took it for a test drive, and then I immediately blew a head gasket. That caused a huge issue because the mixture of coolant and oil turns into this kind of a coffee looking substance. It's very thick and gross. Blew through the intake, came all the way up here through the intake here. It was just everywhere. It was nasty. So then I pulled the whole engine because I knew I was going to have to either do rod bearings or something. Pulled the whole engine. Noticed that the rods were bad. I had a couple of crank journals that were bad. And I noticed on the block, the actual block main journal was bad. It was scarred up and scratched, and I didn't really know what to do, if the block was just junk or what. So then what I did is I bought a 1997 S10, and this is actually it right here. So what I did was I just bought it from him, the whole thing for $400, and then pulled the engine out of it. I wanted to get a 96 or newer engine and just replace the bottom end on it. That actually worked out really good. So I rebuilt I put in the new block and the heads, and then I put the original intake back on this because the intakes are a little bit different. They're actually the same, but some of the coolant ports and stuff where the sensor goes, the 97s have two sensors. One is actually in right where the thermostat goes, and then there's also a secondary one on the side of the head over here. The 99s originally just have only the one on the side of the head. So I had to make a couple of changes there. So that's why I wanted to use the original intake. Plus I had already swapped and put a new spider injector in the upper intake on this one. So so this basically has a 97 heads and short block bottom end with the 99 intake and all those components on up. Everything runs good. It's basically a brand new engine, and it has this truck originally has actually when I bought it had 152,800 miles on it, and I thought it was a pretty sharp looking vehicle. I like the way that these look. I like that it already had some aftermarket wheels and tires on it. Makes it look just a little bit nicer. And I like the color. I don't know what it is about the red color, but for whatever reason I seem to like it. So overall I thought it was a pretty nice little truck to be putzing around in for $1,000. So after all was said and done, I probably have $2,500 into this thing. The guy that I bought it from was a cleaner. He worked at the hospitals and he worked in environmental services, but then when COVID hit, he actually started his own cleaning business. Because of that though, he kept everything clean. So the interior in this thing is mint. No rips on the seat. I mean, just very, very clean. Yeah, this didn't have any dog hair in it, but now it does because of somebody. But this is the back seat right here. I mean, just super clean. You can tell that there weren't any kids back here, you know, dropping stuff everywhere. And this is the way I bought it. And the guy didn't have it like vacuumed or anything, but like overall, it was just like super clean. I mean, some of these floor mats might have a few stains on them from some boots and whatever, but otherwise, I mean, this is just in great shape. You know, these aren't sagging, and these aren't really meant to sag, but some of the older vehicles, you see these back pockets and they're just sagging down really bad. I mean, the headliner looks like it's in great shape. There's one mark on it up here. I don't know what that's from. It looked like it may have been from a cigarette at one time, but you can't smell any smoke smell. So this, I assume, has been ozoned a couple of times, or maybe just once, I don't know. But otherwise, interior headliner here is in great shape. You see some of those little fuzzy things on there. That's just because we have a lot of cottonwood trees around here, so I can like just grab those off with my finger. It's no big deal. But you know, overall, the interior of this is just fantastic. No rips, no major stains. I mean, that was just a real selling point for me when I bought this. So just really enjoy these interiors of these trucks. I think they're really well done, very simple. One of my favorite features about these Blazers is that these back seats fold right down, and then this seat is all the way back, but if I just move it ahead a little bit, this lays completely flat, and then you got all this usable space back here. And you can, I like them because they split these seats 60-40. I don't know what year that was, but some of the older, more square-bodied Blazers had just a single bench seat back here, and then that would lay back down all at one. But this split design is nice. This also pops up, so you can use this for storage. Same with the back of that one also. So I really do like that. Very handy feature. So this is the back right here. This back is great. This came with the kind of rubber floor mat. I have a stain on there right now. That's just some transmission. I had a bottle of transmission fluid at one time back here, and it leaked, and so that's what that is. But that's just on the rubber component. But there really is a lot of space back here. You lay that seat down, and it's kind of like having a pickup truck with a topper on it, because there's just so much space that you could put stuff back here. So the functionality of that is fantastic. I like that very much. You know, you see these a lot in these 90s colored seats. You know, you have these kind of patterns in them. So I like these 90s designs where they're just a little better. The one good thing about, you know, some people really don't like the push button four-wheel drive. I love it when it works. I just don't like it when it doesn't work. But in this case, if it does go bad, it's a fairly easy fix that I could do by myself. But in the older models that had a floor shifter, you know, it would be down here. So you wouldn't really have any usable space. So this is kind of nice to have a little extra storage space down here. Otherwise, in lieu of that, then you would have the physical lever to shift into four-wheel drive. But the cigarette lighter even works on here. That's also cool. It has a cigarette lighter. I shouldn't say cool. Not that smoking is cool, but you know, you just don't see that anymore, to have a cigarette lighter in vehicles. Just kind of unique. You don't see some of the things. You know, my grandfather had a Blazer, and it actually had in the back seats, where the handle lever was, there was actually an ashtray. So you had 3 ashtrays essentially in the truck. You had one in the front, in the middle, you know, like up here where this one was, and then you had the ones that were in the door in the back seat. So everybody kind of had their own ashtray, which is, you know, that just goes to say how much how in smoking was in, you know, back then, how accepted that was. I also love that the compass and the thermometer work on here. The newer vehicles that have the kind of a shark fin design, they're mounted on the roof of the vehicle. Those actually just start to go bad after a while, and then you don't get the you know, the compass and the thermometer. So those are kind of a frustrating thing. But 25 years later, and this is still working like it's brand new, and it's accurate. This is kind of unique. Back in the day when these came out, these were just some weird contraption, you know, where you'd put your, you know, essentially the clicker for your garage door opener, center it just so that it would be on that button, and then when you push this, it would, you know, it would activate that. Really kind of a weird design. I don't know anybody in my life that has ever done that. And because this was 1999, CD holder. So this is actually for your CDs. You could sneak them up in there. You could probably fit about 3 of them. And then if that wasn't enough, then this actually right here, I have a bunch of receipts in there. But you could actually fit 1, 2, 3, 4 more CD cases, full CD cases. You could slide them in there. So you could store essentially 7 CDs in here, which is kind of unique. Nobody uses CDs anymore. A lot of the cars being built today don't even put CD players in them anymore because no one uses them. And then I'm missing my, that was for change. A lot of the older vehicles also had change holders in them. So you had a slot. You could push your dimes, you could put your nickel in there, and you could put your quarters in there. And then you could easily slide it out with your thumb, and then you could make change. But nobody uses change anymore. Nobody even really carries around money in their wallet. It's all plastic these days. So that was also a unique feature back then too. Very late 90s, early 2000s. Because this has automatic headlights, if you ever parked and you didn't want your headlights on, even though this selector is pointed to off, you know, they'll still come on. You push this in and out, you cycle it, I think 2 or 3 times, and then it would beep at you, and then it'll shut the headlights off. Hear that? All right, let's take this baby for a drive. So the Chevy Blazer actually has origins all the way back to 1969. That was the origination of the K5 Blazer, which came from its K10 derivative older sibling, which was the pickup truck version, full-size pickup truck back in that time. Then in 1983, they came out with the S10 Blazer. The K5 was known as the original Blazer, and then the S10 was kind of the baby Blazer, if you will. And the S10 Blazer came from its S10 pickup truck sibling. And the S10 Blazer went through a number of generations, different body styles. It first started out as square, originally only a 2-door version, but unlike the K5 Blazer, the S10 did not have a removable top. And after a while, the K5 didn't have a removable top, but that's primarily what those K5 Blazers are known for, is their removable tops. The S10 Blazers, any of the versions, never had a removable top, so that's how they were a little bit different. And later on, it actually came out with the S10 Blazer came out with a 4-door version, I think in 1991. I'm not entirely sure on that. And the Chevy Blazer had a run, at least the S10 version, from 1983 until 2004, arguably 2005. So I guess that's about a 21 to 22 year run from that version of the Blazer. And then in 2019, you had the new relaunch of the Chevy Blazer. And I really think they missed the ball on the new relaunch in 2019. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the history and the lineage of the Blazer the K5, the S10, even the Trailblazer, once that was launched, I think that came out in 2002 if I'm right. All of those versions, all of those Blazers were rugged. They were built and were advertised as a machine that could go off-road and weather the storm and go through all these different things. The advertisements, often the print ads and the commercials, you would see them going over rocks and pulling campers and just doing all these different things as a sport utility vehicle would. And so then you have its competitors of the Chevy Blazer. You have the Ford Bronco, and then you have the Jeep Wrangler. And there's different types of Jeeps also, the Rubicon, whatever you want to call them. I mean, there's different versions, but all of those were mid-size SUVs that could carry passengers and that could also go off-road. They had big tires. They were advertised for their versatility and their off-road ruggedness. But then when Chevy relaunched their Blazer in 2019, it just looked like any other SUV, mid-size crossover, and it just doesn't have that rugged appeal that I think most of us wanted. Unlike the Ford Bronco, which still maintained its ruggedness, its big tires, much like the Jeeps, they still have that big tire off-road kind of a presence. And Chevy just missed the mark on that. I think that they really could have brought that back. I think that there is a market for that. There just really isn't anything offered by Chevrolet that has that mid-size off-road ruggedness. If you want that, you really have to go with a Silverado. They're just kind of missing the ball on that. Another interesting fact regarding advertising is that the Chevy Blazer was marketed towards women also in the advertising, like women specifically. And I don't know how that really worked out for them, but I did note and found it interesting that the Chevy Blazer, even in all of its ruggedness, was really marketed towards women. You saw print advertising that almost looked Barbie doll-ish in terms of the writing, in terms of the colors, and I thought that was a little bit weird, you know, according to today's standards, but still very intentional about marketing this vehicle towards females. In the ads would say something along the lines of, you know, the Chevy Blazer just depends on what type of a woman you are. And so it really catered to the different types of women that were out there, the different activities that they liked, and trying to sell the Blazer as kind of a one-size-fits-all for all the different lifestyles that women would lead. So you not only had the advertising that was directed towards women, but you also had the advertising that was directed towards men. And the Chevy Blazer was really meant to appeal to both genders. Now the S10 Blazer, going all the way back to 1983, there were a few different engine options that were available. You had a 4-cylinder, I think they offered a 2-liter, you could also get a 2.2 liter. Then they had a V6 that was originally the 2.8 V6, and then after a while you got the 4.3. And all the other versions were retired, and eventually you could only get the 4.3. That was really the only engine platform available for the Blazer. But I gotta say, the 4.3 is a very large displacement V6. If for those of you that don't know, it is the 350, which is the 5.7 liter Chevy, which was found in the K1500 versions, pickup trucks, used for many years. I mean, it goes all the way back to the 1950s when that first came out. But the 4.3 is the 5.7 with just 2 cylinders shaved off. I mean, they have the same displacement in terms of cylinder size. They have the same stroke. Then they have the same bore size. So a lot of the internals, like the connecting rods and the bearings and all that, the pistons, those were all interchangeable between the 5.7 and the 4.3 V6. And the 4.3 is really torquey. It's got peak torque at 2,800 RPM. So as you're going through the gears, you know, you don't have to wind out that 4.3 engine just to get any power out of it. It has a lot of mid-range power, and it just performs well in that torque curve. It doesn't seem like the engine has to work super hard. It really is just effortless. It's also known for its longevity and durability, and it's not uncommon that you would see these Blazers or S10 pickups out there, or even some of the full-size pickups too. They come with 4.3s. The 4.3 engine is also a Mercruiser, so you will find them in a lot of boat engines. Now the design in terms of the intake and some of those things are a little bit different, but they were sold to boat manufacturers, and so they would put those in many different marine vessels as well. Generally speaking, depending on what model year that you bought, it made 190 horsepower at 4,400 RPM, and it made 250 pound-feet of torque at only 2,800 RPM. Now, the high-performance version of the 4.3 came in the early 1990s. In 1991, GMC came out with the GMC Cyclone, which was the S10 pickup version of a high-performance mini pickup truck. Then later in 92 and 93, they came out with the GMC Typhoon, which was the Blazer version of the high-performance SUV. Both of them were powered by a 4.3 turbocharged. Now, the turbocharged V6 4.3 in the 1991 GMC Cyclone produced 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. It made it to 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, which was honestly faster than any Ferrari at that time. So the 4.3 engine, when coupled with the right performance products, can be a very powerful engine, very fast, with high amount of torque and a decent amount of horsepower. So let's not forget that both the GMC Cyclone and the slightly slower GMC Typhoon, just because it was heavier, was one of the fastest and one of the more sought after vehicles of all time. The Chevy Blazer was also the last body-on-frame design. And the significance of that is even the Chevy Trailblazer, even though it is larger, it's a unibody. So that means all the parts are kind of framed together to make the body as one cohesive piece. Whereas the body-on-frame design is literally a body mounted, bolted to a frame. And so to find a little vehicle like this with a body-on-frame design, you just don't find that anymore. A lot of them nowadays are just unibodies. That being said, in relation to its ride comfort, I do find that these are very spacious. I am very comfortable inside of it. However, if you wanted something that is quiet, the Chevy Blazer is not some quiet, nuanced machine. It does have its rattles, it has its noises. Everything in here is made out of plastic, and the plastic trims and all that was very cheap and easy to make, and easy to produce and easy to replace. However, it does break, so they're not necessarily the quietest vehicle in the world, but if you can get over the rattles, these things will last a very long time. However, if something that is quiet is up your alley, then the Chevy Blazer probably isn't it. The engine also makes noise. They actually had to add a balance shaft in the 4.3 engine to reduce vibrations. So I could have gone out and bought like some nicer vehicle, nice car, whatever, but I really wanted a Chevy Blazer, and that's just because it has all this sentimental value to me, because I grew up in it, and even the noises and the sound of the engine and all of that just brings me back to good memories when I was a child of traveling, and thoughts of my grandfathers and going to different events. And so it brings back a lot of good memories for me. It invokes a lot of good feeling. So I assume that some of you might be in that same boat where you bought a vehicle just because you grew up in it, or it might not have been the most wildly exciting vehicle to be in, but it just brought back a lot of good memories for you. So I talked a lot about its dependability, its durability, its longevity. I would like to hear from you. What is your favorite vehicle in terms of longevity and durability? What is a vehicle that you got the most mileage out of? I'd love to know that. Hey, thanks for tuning in, you guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see y'all later. All right, let's listen to this thing purr and rattle.